My name is Michelle, and I have Graves' disease. Graves' disease is exhausting. It feels like a lot of different symptoms all at once, unexplainable, sometimes unpredictable. It can feel scary at times. Well, as far as I'm aware, it's an autoimmune disorder that affects your thyroid, so everyone has a thyroid. But what happens is it is either an overabundance of the hormone or it is extremely low levels, which cause varying different symptoms. Brain fog, nervousness, different, like heightened anxiety than what may be normal for you. Just lack of mental clarity, depending on, how extreme or your levels are, or if they're not in control. I was having heightened anxiety, then I knew that wasn't normal for me. I started having just like weird feelings, like it felt like a panic attack, but that's not what it was. So for me, like I was experiencing where it felt like I couldn't relax my heart muscle. And it felt like there was different fluctuations in like my blood pressure, and it felt like certain times like as if my blood was rushing around my body really fast. And just that combination of factors, it makes you feel, it's scary because you don't know what am I feeling, or what is this, or what are all these together? So I was under a lot of stress. Like my last 2 years of high school, I was in the same classes with these students for 2 years. We had like a very rigorous curriculum, and I was also doing sports as well. So I would go to school at like 6 a.m., go all day, do practice, get home at like 5 p.m., and then I would like nap for several hours before doing homework. And it was like a constant just grind. So I wondered, I was never really told like what caused it or what triggered it. I still don't really know. But I always thought like, well, was it the stress that I was under? Maybe just for my age at the time, maybe that like impacted it somehow. I don't know. I had a lot of questions. I didn't understand at the time. I had never even heard about it before. They did blood work after I'd started exhibiting all these weird symptoms, and so they did blood work, and they're like, yeah, you have Graves' disease. And I was like, what is that? So of course my mind automatically goes to like, Graves' disease, does that mean that it's terminal? It turns out it's actually named after a man whose last name was Graves, so it sounds very dire, but I mean, of course it can be if it's not treated or if it's not being checked. Your body can't go very long without having the proper medication and you being like on top of that. So it was a lot of questions. I didn't know, and I still have a lot of questions too. I've just been living with my individual symptoms. At the time, got the diagnosis, they started figuring out like what treatment they were going to pursue with me. So what they did is they're like, we're going to do a radioactive iodine pill. And so they were explaining what was going to happen. So they're like, well, what you're going to do is you're going to take this dose. You can't be around anyone for 2 weeks because you're essentially radioactive. So you'll be quarantined. But I got to be at home for that, which, was fine. You just can't be exposed to anyone, can't share a restroom with anyone. That was really crazy. I kind of felt like a superhero because they brought me into the room to give me the capsule, and it's like in this little like container, and it's got the little biohazard sign on it. So that was very interesting. And then after that, they said, okay, you're going to have the hormone replacement now, and that's going to basically be your thyroid for the rest of your life. So you have to make sure you get blood tested routinely. Your levels will need to be checked all the time to make sure that we're not giving you too much or you're not too low, which, I feel the effects depending on if my dosage isn't right. And it affected my just like mental clarity. And my mood was definitely like my anxiety was heightened more. I started to find myself feeling more just like out of whack. And I knew that it wasn't normal for me. And it gets frustrating. It gets frustrating when you know that you don't feel right. And people don't understand because, they're not experiencing that level of what you have. And so it's a constant like kind of loop. I mean, with medication and with the treatment, I mean, I'm definitely in a more improved state than what I was. But as far as like, sometimes I get a little like nervous with travel, only because I feel like, okay, like if I travel somewhere, I need to make sure like I have, you know, backup dosage. Like, okay, if I go somewhere, like, you know, if something happens and I, you know, can't travel back or whatever, I mean, am I gonna have my access to my medication? Because, you know, you can only go so long. Like, I think the longest I went without my medication was a week, and that was not fun. It feels awful. Like, you can feel your body going out of whack. Like, it's like, for example, I would fall asleep and then I would wake up like in the middle of the night, almost like a nervousness. It's almost like my body's like waking me up, and I feel like shaky and like that blood rushing around your body feeling. If you've ever felt that, I still do have the, you know, the brain fog sometimes. It's not as bad as it was, but it is there. Every so often, just like, you know, memory recall wasn't as sharp. I feel like it's gotten better because I've always known that, you know, I mean, I have normal memory, but for a while there, like, I wasn't able to recall things as quickly or like as, you know, as prevalent as I used to be able to. But like I said, I will say that I am feeling better now than I was, but I can still feel, the effects. I feel like my anxiety has still been heightened as well. So that's another thing, is that the effects of like the normal women's hormones that we go through in conjunction with the way that it makes me feel with my thyroid. So that's also something that I feel like I've been needing to sort of delve into. Because for a while there, I think I was experiencing just like some sort of like major hormonal like imbalance. I think I would like to do more research on like what other treatment options are available, because this is what I've known. And this is what's, you know, worked so far for me. But I feel like maybe there is more research to be done, and there's just a lot of unknown things to me. I try to eat healthy. I need to get back into exercise. I was very like active, like as, you know, high school and beyond that. I was always doing like exercising or out or hiking. You know, life gets in the way sometimes and you get pulled from that, but I try to maintain a active lifestyle for sure. I feel better when I'm, you know, taking care of myself. Some people don't really know about what I have. For me, I would just say it's more about like just the internal battle that I go through, and just how that frustration plays out, you know, like externally with the way that I feel or at the moment. Like if I'm having a day where maybe I feel like my blood pressure feels a little out of whack and I'm having like I feel hot sometimes, you know, I'll just say, hey, you know, I don't feel good, like, or no, I don't feel like doing this today, or, you know. And I mean, they understand. I think it goes back to trying to strike that balance within me, like internally, so that it doesn't really play out in like frustrations, like externally, like, you know, constantly like, oh, I don't feel good, or oh, I don't, you know, I just don't feel right today. But as far as it hasn't disrupted anything with my family or friends, and, you know, they do know like what I have, and I would just say, you know, they only understand as much as they can, just because a lot of them have never heard about it, or, you know, so they don't really know what I go through. Receiving the treatment and having that balance, and sort of, you know, realizing for myself that like, okay, I am feeling better than I was. I think that definitely helps. And that's a good point, that like, you know, I don't really know where or what part of the spectrum of it that I'm experiencing, but I know that there's people that have it a lot worse. You know, but I think, again, taking care of myself and doing what I know is good for me helps. I just think there's a lot of questions, because I myself still have like a lot of unknown variables, and there's some questions I don't feel like I can ask because I don't know how to ask them. I think for me, I would like to know if they could ever tell me one day, like, what triggered it or what caused it. I mean, no one in my family has a thyroid condition. I was the only one. I mean, to definitely know that they're not alone, because it can be isolating. It can feel isolating, because how many people do we know that have it? I mean, I don't know how many people I've met that have it, that we just never talked about it, right? I am in a place right now where I've pretty much accepted that, okay, this has been my new normal, and, this is where I'm at. But honestly, through this experience, I mean, I do still want more answers. I still want more answers, and, it would be nice to be able to talk to other people and see, like, what other knowledge or information do they have. And again, I think I slipped into that sort of, kind of passiveness, because I never really thought there was more to be told. So that's honestly what I love about this particular, like, opportunity. Like, it's like, wow, this is really bringing to light something that I've been struggling with for so long that I feel like hasn't really been given all this attention to, and now it's like I can talk about it after constantly feeling the way that I felt for so many years. I hope that there could really be definitive answers, or I mean, reasons, like, can anything prevent it? What causes it? And I think just more about, like, what happens, like, why is there so many different versions? And one big question that has come up for me is that, okay, even though I have this area of the spectrum of the disease, I mean, can it get worse? Could I eventually fall into other categories? Just talking more to my doctors, like, I'm currently in the middle of looking for a new doctor since I moved areas, and there is one that specializes in endocrinology, but she requires a referral. So I really am hoping to get with her, because I feel like then the treatment would, the ongoing treatment would be a lot more direct. I feel like I would have a lot more of, the clarity of where am I at currently. I definitely wanted to, talk about what I've been going through, and also gain, if more of a understanding, but also too, like, for other people that are suffering through it, that feel the same way that I feel. A lot of the unknowns, that they're not alone, and that, I think we're all trying to figure this out together, and that, it's the research side is definitely very important. And how can we further that? And then how can we keep that communication open between what they're finding out, what we're feeling, and what people that are becoming diagnosed? I think I want more answers. I think we all want more answers, and that I think it's great that there are communities that do exist for people that maybe they feel polarized or they feel alone, and that they're not.